Howdy folks, it's Ultra here and welcome back to Microsoft Flight Simulator Part 8 of the Transcontinental Speed Run, Spirit of St. Louis, Charles Lindbergh recreation. This is leg 2 of the 2 legs. Obviously, if you're watching this part, you've probably seen the other parts. We are staring down Eaton, Ohio. We just crossed into the Ohio border at the end of the last part. And for this part, we're going to fly as far as we can until I feel like I've spoken too much, and then we'll probably conclude in a part 9. Maybe we'll see how it works out. But anyway, Eaton, Ohio, staring it down. Dayton, Ohio in the distance there. And if we hop outside, we have Richmond, Indiana right behind us. So we're at 5,100 feet above sea level, so we're about 1,000-ish feet above, 4,000-ish, 4,500 feet above ground level, which seems pretty low in the dark, but look at the distance we can see. We can see all the way. Oh, why are we dipping down? What happened there? That's weird. What's going on? We shouldn't have to do mixture. A little bit, yeah. Okay, mixture helps. Anyway, you can see really far. Look, you can see all the way into Dayton and back into Indiana. Like, it's crazy what you can see from only this altitude. Imagine if we were up at a cruise altitude of a ocean liner, of an airliner, you could see everything. But anyway, we are over I-70 right now, and US 40 is yellow. So it's like yellowish for the US highways and reddish for the interstates. I don't know if that's on purpose or just the way it is right here, but it's been pretty easy to tell what road is what, because U.S. highways like this is, where did Eaton go? Eaton is there. So this is US 127, and it's yellow, see? I don't know what county or state roads look like. I guess these would be state roads here, like this is, let's see, 503, I don't know. Anyway, this is interesting because I don't fly that much at night, so I'm just pointing it out to everybody who flies with me, because we don't fly much at night. We are going to keep it nighttime for a while. My eye strain isn't so bad because we have a lot of, city lights and roads. Once we get beyond the Columbus area, though, and it gets to be like the mountains, it's gonna get a lot of eye strain because my monitor will be dark and my other monitors are bright. So sometime before that, we are going to flip the sun so that it's pre-dawn, and then we'll see a sunrise. So that's the plan for the daylight. Our weather is still set to what I call bush trip weather, because real life weather this time of year and what's going on in the United States right now is not flyable for the aircraft. We've tried it in parts 1 and 2 and 3, and it was not fun. So bush trip weather. I'll adjust the time once my eyes start to hurt, and we're slowly climbing. We would probably clear most of the mountains. I'm calling them the Appalachians. I know it's each range within the Appalachians has a name. I can't remember what the range is where we're going over, but I'm calling them Appalachians, I guess. I'm not wrong. I'm not as right as I could be. But anyway, when we reach that mountain range, I think we would clear it from this altitude, but we might have to climb more. We will see. So I'm slowly climbing. Maybe we'll get up to 6,000 or so by the time we get there. Anyway, that is your 3.5 minute update of where we are and what we're doing since it's the beginning of part 8. So I'm going to turn to sightseeing already. I don't have anything new to add. So we'll see how far we get before I start talking again. You might get a lot of video of sightseeing, and then may start rambling in 10 seconds. I don't know, but just know this is Dayton up here. Then after Dayton comes Columbus, and then after Columbus is our state park with our lake. What is that lake called again? It's in our nav log here. It's called Salt Fort Lake. When we get there, that's where we have to make sure we're exactly on their path so that it saves. So if something happens to the simulator, we can go back to there. But hopefully nothing happens to the simulator, so we don't have to worry about it. So anyway, Dayton, some sightseeing. I might talk in Columbus if there's anything to say. Otherwise, I will for sure be talking at Salt Fort lake at the state park. So enjoy the views. Um, yep, you might see the daylight come up at some point. Depends what I do. So many, many, many hours of flying. I'm going to edit it down to something that's consumable. And I'll see you in a little bit. Okay. Sorry, I'm cutting in already because I have a Dayton, Ohio story. I just remembered this. So when my wife and I lived in Oxford, Ohio, which is a satellite suburb of Cincinnati, we wanted to go camping. So this is pre-kids, of course. So we found a campground in Dayton, Ohio. Like you take the interstate to Dayton, and then you go off like a couple miles, and there's a campground there. Can't remember what it was called. Anyway, we go there, and first of all, they thought it was strange that we were there, even though it's a open to everybody campground. Usually, we found out later. Usually, the only people who went there were like regulars, right? And most people had their trailers permanently hooked up with the decks built around it, and like permanent trailers. So we get there with their tents and everything, and they're like, "Okay, where do you want to be?" We're like, "Oh, just rustic site, whatever." And they thought we were crazy. They're like, "Don't you want electricity?" We're like, "No, we're good. We've camped in crazier places." Like, "Okay, don't you need a fan?" We're like, "No, we're good." Okay. So they set us up in their rustic campsite, which is just this field. It wasn't even a field. It was like a little patch of area without trees. Like alongside the border where there was like a fence and then a farm or something. And while we were there for like 2 or 3 days, I can't remember, we were there a long time, everyone would slowly like walk by or cycle by and their 3-wheeler, 4-wheeler by and every ATVs and just come by and stare at us. Every single person stared at us. And they must have thought we were crazy because we weren't regulars and we were in a tent. We're the only tent in the whole place. So then we go to the little front store thing, check-in area. They like asked some questions, and she's like, "Where are you guys from?" Blah blah blah, and that's how we found out everybody that were regulars except us. And she lived there. She lived in the back of the store, in this little room thing, and most of the people who were at the campsite lived there seasonally, so they would live there all summer. And they'd go to work in Dayton or whatever and then come back and go to their campsite every night. It was very weird. I've been camping thousands of times in my life around the country, around the region, I guess, not the country, the region. And I'd never run into that before. I mean, I've run into permanent setups because we kind of had that when I was a kid, like a permanent trailer site and everything, blah, blah, blah. But nothing where people actually like lived there for the season and then would go to work and come back to the site. There's Dayton over the wing, obviously. So yeah, that was very, very strange. And then it was stranger. So then they had this man-made lake pond thing to swim in, but they dyed it blue. So it looked like a swimming pool, but it was a sandy man-made lake. So I think what they did is they pumped in water and then treated it like with chlorine like a pool, but had it lined, hopefully lined under the dirt so they didn't kill the whole area with chemicals. But it was very strange. And then they dyed it, and yeah, it was weird. And then everybody was sunburned, every single person except us, because my wife is obsessed with sunscreen, which is totally fine. But everybody was like red as a lobster, sunburned. And it was just very strange. And then on the other side of the pool pond, they had these towers where you could like zip line, but they weren't very taut, so you couldn't really zip line. And then there's this fence. And then there was a campground after this fence, and we think it was a clothing optional campground. It wasn't marked on the map. We researched it. We don't know what it was called. And you couldn't get to it from where we were. There's just this fence. But it looked way more exciting than the campground we were at. It was in all these like trees and very like a river creek went through it. It was amazing. And we couldn't get to it to check it out. But I regret not trying harder. But yeah, it was very strange campground. Don't remember what it was called. Oh, look at Columbus, Ohio. Look at that. Dayton and then Columbus is already rendering in. I love this at night because you can see the cities reflect off the clouds, which is obviously very realistic. Anyone who's driven like in rural areas, if it's cloudy, the next city will reflect off the clouds. That is so cool. Look at that. Columbus already, well, not already, still like an hour and a half flight, but you can see it. So anyway, there's my Dayton story. I think it's kind of humorous, like Richmond is reflecting too. Maybe those of you from the area know what campground I'm talking about, and maybe you know what was on the other side of that fence that we really wanted to check out, but it didn't work out to figure out what was on the other side of that fence. So anyway, there you go. There's my Dayton story. I don't think I've ever told that before, so that is new to those of you who are sitting through this entire series. Anyway, back to sightseeing. Again, unless I think of something, I will probably not really talk until we get to the other side of Columbus, because then we're getting closer to our halfway point of this leg and where it'll save in case something happens to this end. So let's see if I can not talk for a while, and I'll see you just outside of Columbus. Alright, so we should be coming up on our waypoint soon. That waypoint being Salt Fort Lake and Salt Fort State Park, and that's where the sim should save. So if anything were to happen in the next 4.5 hours, we can go back. But we're not quite there yet. We're probably 20 minutes out. I'm not going to talk for 20 minutes. I just wanted to jump in here before we get there. You are looking at Zanesville right now with I-70. We broke north of I-70 just so that I can make sure we're on their exact path so that we catch this waypoint so that it'll save. So we're exactly on the path right now. So you want to be about 77 degrees, and we're 86. We got to go back to the left, right towards the sun. I did reset the time to pre-dawn when we were over Columbus, and it's worked out perfectly. Columbus, speaking of, well, it's back here. You could see it light up the sky until the sun came up, and now you can't, but it's back there, not that far away. Otherwise, we're heading towards the state park. We will hit the lake. Oh, hit not the lake, but hit, the area of the lake in the air at 5,700 feet. And then it'll save for us. And then we cannot follow I-70 anymore because we need to end up north of that. We're going to head towards Pittsburgh, but not quite that north. So I guess we're just going to follow their path. We really don't have a road to follow. I mean, we could follow 70 for a while and then scoot up to like 78 or something later, but then we're actually 70 to 76 and then 78. I mean, so we could follow 70 to 76 to 78 right to our destination. However, that could add another hour or two, even though it's close. So we're going to stay on their path for a while, and then maybe see what happens. I mean, who knows? We could take their path or the highways. It's just their path is more direct. The highways are a little south. Anyway, once we get to this lake up here, we're going to be in the foothills of the Appalachians. Those of you who are not from the U.S., the Appalachians are these mountains that run all the way, like, I don't know, Gatlinburg, Tennessee, even farther south than that, probably. Yeah, like, Atlanta even. And then they go all the way up to the Canadian border, the Canadian border. But then there's like 15 or 20 ranges within them. So you might have heard the Smoky Mountains, the Blue Ridge Mountains, Adirondack. All these different mountain ranges are all part of the Appalachians. So we're entering the foothills. Now, when I lived in Oxford, near Cincinnati, it was the foothills of the Appalachians. And then you cross the river in Cincinnati and bam, you're in the mountains. It was amazing. And that's how we took our honeymoon. We got in the car, drove south. We're like, hey, these mountains are great. And ended up in Gatlinburg, which is the honeymoon capital of the world. And we're not touristy people, so that really wasn't our type of thing, but we did enjoy it a lot. We couldn't do much hiking because there were like angry bears around, and there are all these signs like if you have a child, you absolutely cannot go hiking. If you're a group of adults, be careful, but not recommended. So we went on one hike only. Otherwise, we're going to head towards the sun, enter the foothills of the Appalachians, and then we might go back to the interstate system and follow that all the way to New York, or we might follow their path and see some, rural scenery. I don't know. The mountains coming up are not that high. In fact, they get snow sometimes, but they're way too small to be snow-capped, for example. So they're not that high. So I don't think we need to climb much more, but we'll see when we get there. So anyway, we're crossing a river just north of Zanesville. This river is called... It's not going to tell me. It's not going to tell me what this thing is called. Oh, there it was. The I can't read sideways. Muskingum River. Okay. We're going to cross that, and then we're entering the Tri-Valley Field State Park area, something. And we're about to enter Salt Fork State Park. So I'm going to quit yapping and through this magic cuts. We're suddenly going to be at our waypoint, and I should see the save icon in the lower right corner for the simulator. Wish me luck. You should be there in, well, for you, a blip of time, time warp, but for me, 10-15 minutes. If it's not already obvious, there's our lake there. Salt Fork. And the state park that goes around it. I don't have any much else to say about it, but anyway, the paths that we're supposed to cross, like right where that, see where that dips down, that U. I was going to do it, yeah. We need to cross over, right. I mean, don't have to be this exact, but we want to cross over that part right there if we can. And then we should see our save icon. We don't want to miss it, because remember when we did the transatlantic flight, we were doing our own path, and if we didn't get close enough to waypoints, I would restart the sim and I'd have to go like an hour or two backwards. So even though every hour was a waypoint, so that's good. I missed a few. Otherwise, you should be pretty good. You know, I have the hiccups, and the sun is coming up quickly. And when I was doing this view, you could see the foothills before the mountains out there. So I'm very excited to see what the mountains are going to look like from this altitude. We are climbing up to 6,000 feet, it looks like. Didn't mean to, the train turbulence is pushing us around a little bit. Anyway, I'm looking for that save icon, though. That's the next big thing, is a little save icon. I must say, the way that's rendering in and the sun coming up and everything, that is a beautiful, beautiful looking lake. I'm wondering about the rest of the state park. Looks like there's a golf course and a conference lodge and some cabins. You can get some cabins along the lake. That's cool. Along this part right here where this hook is. That's pretty awesome. What else? Yeah, the beach. So just like our state parks here in Minnesota. A campground and some stables and some museums and trails. Yep, just like any state park, I guess, but this one is in Ohio. Well, no save icon like we got in the other for the other waypoints, so hopefully it'll still bring us back to here if we need to, but hopefully we don't need to. As they say that, we get all the turbulence. Hopefully the rest of the flight will be fine, and the sim won't crash or anything, and we don't need to worry about the waypoint thing. But yeah, this is where we would start from if something happened, supposedly. Like I said, the other waypoints, we got a save icon. I can force it to save by going into the menu, make a change, and then leave the menu, but I wanted it to save on its own so we know we hit the waypoint. Anyway, there's our waypoint. It was supposed to take 4.5 hours. It took me 6 hours and 10 minutes. So it took me over 2 hours, almost 2 hours longer than it was supposed to. I don't really understand why. The entire first leg only took me 3 hours longer than it was supposed to. So 17 instead of 15. So at this rate, we're only halfway done with this leg. It would take me like 11 or 12 hours instead of 8. That's kind of weird, but maybe my altitude is really low, so we're going slower than we would be if we were up higher. I don't know. Ground speed anyway. That being said, we're going to keep cruising through here the way we are. We're going to stay about almost 6,000 feet. That's fine with me. And we're going to do 90 degrees now, I think it said. 90 degrees once we're on track. I think we're actually on track right now. And yeah, so let's go over to 90 degrees instead of 97. That's right at the sun, I guess. And next order of business is the state line from Ohio to Pennsylvania and then Pittsburgh. So I don't know how far this video is going to go. Let me see here. We probably have 45 minutes till we, in my time, not your time, 45 minutes till we get to the state line, and then we'll be going through Pittsburgh, meet up with interstate, I don't know, nothing, just cut across the Appalachians, and then meet up with interstate 78 in Allentown, outside of New York. I don't know. So, as far as you are all concerned watching, I don't know how far this video is going to take us, because I will only want to have one more video, which will be going through New York, the approach, the landing, blah blah blah, and that'll take a lot of video time. So I don't know how long this is going to go. No idea. So I'm going to fly to the state line of Ohio and Pennsylvania, just outside of Pittsburgh. You're going to get a little bit of sightseeing in between, so it's going to be another hour for me at least. Cut down to just a few minutes for you. And I'll see you then, but notice on the way that the foothills are picking up. So enjoy the foothills, and I'll see you at the state line. Alrighty, I misspoke earlier. I kept talking about the Ohio-Pennsylvania border, but there's actually the Ohio-West Virginia border, and then immediately after that is the West Virginia-Pennsylvania border. Because when I was looking at my map, I was zoomed out too far, and that little thing that sticks up from West Virginia, we are actually going to fly over that. So that is pretty cool. I'm just trying to figure out where the state line is going to be for Pennsylvania, but first things first, and that is as soon as we cross the river right here, very obvious river, this is West Virginia, then right over here is Pennsylvania, and there are the mountains rendering in the distance. So this river, what is it called? This Ohio River. Duh, of course it's the Ohio River. It goes around Ohio, and it goes into Cincinnati, and that's where you cross Ohio River, and bam, you've got mountains when you cross over from Cincinnati. Whoops, let's watch where we're going here. I got a little excited. That we get to see West Virginia too. I'm just trying to figure out where we are between the interstates here, and I'm having a difficult time because of the foothills and things. It's hard to see on the satellite image exactly where we are, and it's not night anymore, so we can't use the city lights to help us. So, oh, there's a river here, but I don't see that river. Maybe I do. Is that one? Is that could be Cross Creek, it says. Maybe that's Cross Creek. I don't know. There's a road below us that's curved. Yep, okay, I know where we are on the map. Okay, so New Alexandria is under us right now. Okay, cool. That's where we are. New Alexandria in Ohio, about to cross over into West Virginia for like 30 seconds. And then we'll be in Pennsylvania. So let's get there. Alright, we're about to cross over. It looks like Tiltonsburg is where we are. And there we go. Right, application please, so I can click around. And the river will get us from Ohio into West Virginia, and then about 3 or 4 miles across only is Pennsylvania. Yeah, we're about to go right over the Wheeling HLG Airport. Wheeling, that's this right here. So we're in Tiltonsburg right below us. Let's actually head towards that airport because we're getting quite a way south of our line. I was busy looking around. It was fun, but now we're off course. And we do want to be efficient if we can. So we'll go over this airport, and then looking at my map, it looks like 1, 2, 3, well, maybe a little more than that. 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe 6 or 7 miles across to Pennsylvania. Pretty straightforward. Come on, be a little more aggressive on that turn. So we go over that runway. There we go. There we go. And where we'll be entering Pennsylvania, I don't see any cities listed. There's Bethany in Ohio, and then there's Crosswinds or something into Pennsylvania, but no city on the border. How are we going to know when we cross? If I can pick up a couple roads, I'll be able to tell you. Well, later we're just going to have to know that we're crossing. So we are now officially in West Virginia for just a minute. So if you want to see on the map here where the borders are, the river obviously is Ohio going into West Virginia, then this little drop down and hump, this is Pennsylvania. So that's how small that is. It's that little thing that sticks up on West Virginia. So we just were over the airport. We're heading like this direction, and then we'll cross the river right where it dips down. Boom, that's our border to Pennsylvania. So I don't know why I'm making such a big deal out of state lines, but I guess it's kind of fun. And our state border from West Virginia to Pennsylvania is right by that thing there. So we're just about to cross into West Virginia, and bam, right under the wing. There we go. We are now in West Virginia, Pennsylvania. Man, what a clumsy last few minutes of narration. But I've been at this since early this morning. I haven't taken a break. So it's been, well, I took a little break, but it's been 7 hours I've been flying straight. Because my kids are out doing their own thing, which is great. So that gives me time. My wife's working. She usually works weekends. She does so much random stuff during the week. Weekends are her hurry up and catch up day. So she's hurry up and catching up. I'm staying out of her way because I slow her down, and my kids are out doing stuff with friends. So gonna fly until I'm needed. So we're now in West Virginia. You can kind of see the line where they're on the power lines here. Bam. Or Pennsylvania. We're now in Pennsylvania. So look at that. You can see across the whole West Virginia thing. It's only a couple miles up here. What is next? Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. So we're going to fly for a little bit longer here at about 6,000 feet. I'm going to try to keep around 6,000 if I can, unless updrafts push us up, whatever. Pittsburgh area is next. We're going to fly past that in this video. So a little bit of sightseeing. I'm not really going to talk in Pittsburgh. I don't have any stories or anything about Pittsburgh. So sightseeing through Pittsburgh. And when the foothills turn into mountains, which will be shortly after Pittsburgh, that's where we'll wrap up this video. So hopefully the final video of this mission will be over the Appalachians and then into New York and landing. So that might actually end up being a pretty long video. We'll see. Anyway, sightseeing through Pittsburgh, and I'll give a little outro just as we reach the Appalachians, and I'll see you then. Enjoy a couple minutes of sightseeing along the way. Okie dokie, the mountains are in front of us. Appalachians and whatever this range is called, I can't remember. I did look it up and I forgot. So anyway, they go all the way down like Atlanta-ish area. They come all the way up to the Canadian border and beyond. And there's different ranges in between. I think I mentioned that in a previous video. Don't know if it was this one or another one, but somewhere within this trip I mentioned that. You can Google it, look up which range this is if you want to. They're not very high. They don't get snow capped, but they do get snow in the winter, obviously. We are definitely high enough to clear them. And I keep gaining altitude without trying, so I don't know what's going on, but I'm just going to let her ride on up. I'll let the updrafts take us up and make sure the downdrafts don't suck us down. But that will be in the next video. So behind us is Pittsburgh. I try to get the skyline and stuff as much as I could. Skyline's over there. I meant to get some of the river crossing, but my kids came down and were talking to me, which means I need to hang this up for today as well as end the video for today. So like the video so people know that this is going on, because there aren't many people doing this. So even if you're not somebody to like a video, like this one time, please. That way the algorithm will say, dude, Turtle's doing this thing, people want to see it. And subscribe so you know the next part, I think part 9, comes out. I'm going to try to conclude this mission in part 9, even though it's going to take me several real life days to get back to this. I'll chip away at it, splice it together in one consumable video. But anyway, there you go. Mountains are ahead, leaving Pittsburgh, and I'll see you next time.